The world of Formula One has been shaken up again. This time, however, it wasn't due to an on-track accident or a penalty controversy. Rather, it was a 42-page secret document that mysteriously found its way into Lewis Hamilton's hands, a document he was never supposed to see. What exactly does the document reveal? Did it reveal technical flaws in a car that had yet to be released to the public? Let's discuss it, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. When Hamilton announced his move to Ferrari for the 2025 season, the world was in raptures. It was the biggest move in Formula One history, a sporting icon joining the sport's most legendary team. The official narrative described it as a mission to restore Ferrari to its former glory. 2 top drivers, 1 noble goal. But the reality behind the scenes was very different. Behind the big smiles, glamorous photo opportunities, and carefully crafted press conferences, a different plan was in motion. That plan was slowly but surely erasing Hamilton's role as the ultimate hero. The document that landed in Hamilton's hands was not evidence of blatant sabotage. There were no bolts that had been loosened deliberately, nor any glaring technical errors to blame. However, the document's contents were far more disturbing. A collection of technical terms that only insiders would understand, lists of internal priorities, and detailed notes on operational decisions. At first glance, it seemed trivial. However, when considered carefully, they all pointed to one conclusion. This was not a system built to support Hamilton. It was designed to remove him from the center of power slowly, systematically, and almost imperceptibly. This was not the kind of sabotage you see in the movies. There were no dramatic explosions or heated confrontations. This made it all the more insidious. How can you accuse someone of doing something they technically never did? How can you challenge small decisions that are never explicitly stated but repeated repeatedly and drive results in a certain direction? Hamilton didn't need the help of an analyst or technician to understand what was going on. With more than a decade of experience in Formula One, he knew exactly when he was being subtly boxed in, limited in his maneuverability, controlled without direct orders, and excluded from the center of strategy in barely perceptible ways. From the start of the season, something had felt off. Not in the form of a blatant technical failure or a major incident that the public would easily recognize, but something more subtle yet powerful enough to disrupt the rhythm of a world champion. In the simulator, Lewis Hamilton's car felt strange, unbalanced and out of tune, as if it hadn't been designed for him. Whenever he requested a particular setup or change, the response was always ambiguous and evasive. Phrases such as "still under development" or "not available at this time" became standard responses, as if there was no urgency to address his needs. On the other side of the garage, the situation felt very different. Charles Leclerc was cruising along smoothly, as if he were in the fast lane. Everything he needed, the latest data, experimental tools, and even micro-adjustments to his setup, came to him quickly and without delay. No evasive answers. No hesitation. Every request was acted upon immediately. Meanwhile, Hamilton, who never asked for too much, often found that his requests were met with seemingly soothing but meaningless diplomatic phrases. "We'll look at it later." But that later never came. Gradually, the gap began to be noticed. What had previously been a subtle gap was now glaring. In Leclerc's camp, the atmosphere felt warmer and more familiar. He was surrounded by engineers and staff who had worked with him since the early days of his Formula 2 career. They spoke in technical abbreviations and internal codes, creating a team language that only the inner circle understood. This was a communication fortress that not only kept information secret, but also defined who was considered part of the extended family and who wasn't. For Hamilton, this wasn't just a difference in working style or communication. It was a subtle alarm, a signal of imbalance. It was a sign that there was an internal dynamic that wasn't entirely open or fair. And perhaps this was just the beginning of something much bigger that hadn't yet been fully revealed. But Hamilton, a seasoned champion, knows that when the little things start to go wrong, a big storm is usually just around the corner. Ferrari didn't need to give explicit orders. They simply employed a silent strategy that spoke louder than 1,000 words. When Lewis Hamilton was in a position to attack, the team radio was silent: "Manage the tires, keep the brakes warm, think long-term." A message that sounded neutral, even wise. But, in the context of racing, it was a subtle warning to hold back. By contrast, when Charles Leclerc was in a similar situation, the instructions were very different. Unambiguous. With no room for interpretation. Push now. Attack mode. Two contrasting approaches. Two strategies within one team. And that was taken for granted, oddly enough. But that was only the beginning of the story. Small technical adjustments were made, a slight change in brake bias, a slight tweak to the floor, and a diffuser that Hamilton said had only been finely adjusted. Yet each of these minor changes felt like a step backward for Hamilton. It was as if there was an invisible weight holding him back. It was something that couldn't be explained by data, but could be felt in every corner. The peak came when Hamilton set an extraordinary time in a closed test session. He was curious and wanted to see the telemetry. He wanted to analyze what had made the car feel so perfect at that time. But when he asked for the data, the response sent shivers down his spine. The data was gone. There was no technical explanation or apology. The technicians just said, "Still being synchronized." Day after day passed, and the promised later never came. It's not just about the technicalities on the track. The system's influence has also spread to media editorial rooms. After several races, a change in the tone of the news began to emerge. The Italian media, who previously adored Lewis Hamilton's arrival as Ferrari's savior, are slowly starting to turn their attention to Charles Leclerc, the young racer who is considered the hope for the future. Hamilton. He is still respected, of course. However, he is increasingly being described as a mentor or a wise senior racer, and is even euphemistically referred to as a luxury reserve for crucial moments. Ferrari is constructing a grand narrative. In that narrative, Hamilton is not the main character. He is a public figure and a magnet for international headlines. However, the real stage, a carefully constructed long-term stage, is being set for Leclerc. He is the hero who has slowly been pushed to the top of the story. Lewis Hamilton has not sought controversy. He has not expressed his anger to the media, nor has he made a bold statement that could ignite a firestorm of opinion. Instead, he has chosen the quiet path of performance. He has fought back in the most elegant way a champion can, using speed, consistency, and strategic intelligence. Every lap he completes on the track is a silent yet palpable act of resistance. Behind the scenes, Hamilton is demanding clarity in team meetings. He is pressuring engineers and technicians to be fully transparent. He is beginning to piece together the game plan that seems to be being played out against him, uncovering the reasons behind the shady strategic decisions. The 2025 season is about more than just the fastest cars on the track. It is also a silent war, a tense internal conflict erupting at the heart of one of the most influential teams in the history of world sport. Lewis Hamilton arrived at Ferrari with one mission: to rewrite Formula One history. He wanted to add an eighth title to his collection, establishing himself as an absolute legend who could not be challenged. However, the reality at Maranello was far from what he had hoped for. He was confronted with more than just technical challenges and car adaptations. He was thrown into a maelstrom of internal politics, power struggles, divided loyalties, and a culture that prioritized public image and narrative over winning on the track. Now, the world champion had to do more than beat his rivals on the circuit. He also had to contend with an invisible enemy, the forces within his own team who were slowly trying to push him out of the limelight and erase his presence without ever having to acknowledge him. Could what Hamilton experienced at Ferrari be called a form of professional betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments below.